My next guest is a good, dear friend, an amazing patriot. I think he's the closest we have in the conservative world to a William F. Buckley today. To say he's a talk show host is kind of an insult. He is a scholar, which is also kind of an insult. He's the good kind of scholar who knows the truth, can see the patterns and can see a path forward and shows us how to fight back. If he were a founding father, I think he would be John Adams. Welcome to the program, Mr. Mark Levin.
Wow, I should come on more often. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So you have a new book out called American Marxism, and I got a lot of questions about it. It's an excellent, excellent book. You don't need me praising it to sell it, but you go into the revolution that is happening right now, and you say, I mean, your first chapter is, it's here. Could you do me a favor? I want you to talk to somebody who is not engaged in daily politics. They don't listen to us. They're still being led by their feelings. They think they're doing good by being anti-racist, or they think they're being good by standing up for all the things that these Marxists are standing up for. Convince them that this is happening, it's real, and it's going to destroy all of us.
This is a great question, and it's really the embodiment of the entire first chapter. And the title, American Marxism. First of all, we who do understand what's taking place have got to stop being intimidated. This isn't progressivism or social activism or democratic socialism. This is Marxism. Mm-hmm. Now, it may not be Marxism in every particular, but it is an Americanized form of Marxism. Now, how do we know that? Because they tell us that. That's what their people write about, their founders in the 60s and 50s and 40s and even in the 70s. So what I would say and I do, to my audience too, what I would say to people is, first of all, you need to pay attention to what's taking place. Secondly, you need to turn off CNN and MSNBC and stop reading the New York Times and the Washington Post. Thirdly, you've seen it with your own two eyes. You saw the riots all summer long. You saw Black Lives Matter, which is headed by openly proud Marxists. You see Antifa, which is a Marxist anarchist organization. You see the media that you have been watching and reading endorse every single one of these movements. There's not a distinction of any kind between what happens on television and what Black Lives Matter is promoting, or even Antifa is promoting, and they also cover up the violence or try to dismiss it. Mm-hmm. Same with the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party, talk to them. Say, don't you believe in an independent judiciary? When you go to court, do you want politicians sitting on the bench, or do you want judges sitting on the bench? Well, the Democrats want politicians sitting on the bench. They want to destroy separation of powers. They want to destroy the functioning of the Senate by packing it with Democrats. They want to destroy the way the legislative process works. So even if it's 50-50 in the Senate or a 4-vote majority in the House, they can fundamentally alter our constitutional system. Do you like the money you earn? Do you like the home you own? Do you like the community you're in? Well, Joe Biden has signed executive orders to destroy all of it with his attack on the suburbs and also in the cities. Do you like your local school system? Do you like where your kids are being educated? Crime infested? Kids aren't graduating. They're not going on to college. Why do you tolerate that? Well, the Democrats are preventing us from having school choice. They're preventing us from having any form of freedom and competition in the inner cities. And so I would explain this on a level that apparently the Republican leadership cannot explain it. The book tries to do that. Look, this is a unique book for me. It's at 3 levels. One, there's heavy scholarship, but I explain it. So I might take a paragraph from one of them and then have a paragraph explaining it.
Right. And you needed to. I thank you for that, because if you read Marx, it's I mean, mind-boggling how ridiculous and convoluted I think it is.
The other thing is, he destroys the idea of an individual, and you're talking to an individual. You say, you lead your own life. You have your family, if you do. You have your career that you want. There's things you like to do. Well, when it comes to Marx, he eliminates all that. You have to work for the state. It's what the state wants. Mm-hmm. He believes that you have to surrender your liberty, you have to surrender your property to the best interests of the state. And what's the state? Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and faceless bureaucrats who don't even know who you are? You're going to surrender your life and your family? It's a form of involuntary servitude. That's what Marxism is. So basically, we have to people have been brainwashed, or as I say in the first chapter, people have not been paying attention, or they view this as a passing fad. And I try to make the case in the first chapter, no, it's not. And we all need to wake up to this. And if we have little differences, moderate Democrats and libertarians and so forth, you better put them aside right now because we have a common enemy. I say enemy, not opponent, not adversary, enemy. And we need to be focused on defeating that enemy rather than fighting among ourselves. You know, a footnote on this, Glenn, because, you know, you're a man of faith. I'm a man of faith. I think of the Second Temple in Israel, in Jerusalem. And while the Romans for 4.5 years were attacking the temple, trying to slaughter the Jews, they were fighting among themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They were fighting among themselves. As they were being attacked, they were attacking each other. Well, the temple fell. There's no guarantee that this country will survive as a free country. We're not looking into the abyss now. We're in the abyss. And we have to figure out how to claw our way out. And so, not to jump ahead, this book is 6 chapters of explanation and 1 chapter of activism. For me, it's a very unique book in the way that I wrote it. I think it's by far my most important book, given what's going on today. But you look at the attack on the cops, you look at Soros with the prosecutors, you look at phony bail reform, you look at the open border. All these things are intended to destroy our system, destroy our culture, destroy our tradition, destroy our mores. Now, if that's not Marxism, what the hell is it?
So let me ask you, because you go into this in depth, and I can't thank you enough for, you know, the Cloward and Piven mentions in there. You're the
guy that really, let me just give you a little kudos here. You're the guy that brought them to my attention to most of the countries. And the husband's dead, and she hates your guts, by the way.
Oh, I'm very well aware of that. I'm very well aware of that. I wear it as a badge of honor. But you go into all of this, and I think, Mark, that there are 2 things going on. And I think that what is so strange that people can't figure out what they're like, what is happening? Because you have giant corporations involved in this and Marxist. Well, those 2 don't go together. And I think the elites, the real elites, the very, very wealthy corporations and people like Klaus Schwab, I think that they are using these Marxist revolutionaries as useful idiots. They're going to destroy it, and we'll be there with the answer. And it won't be what the Marxists want.
I have a little different take on this.
Okay.
I think, and either of us could be right, because who knows?
I know.
But I think these corporations have decided that the other side's going to win. And these are not capitalists, they're corporatists.
Yes.
And you see them, they operate in China.
Mm-hmm.
They operated during the Third Reich. And because China needs them and the Third Reich needed them, as long as they behave as they demand. And I think a lot of these corporatists are no different. And that is this. They believe the Democrat Party, they believe the culture, they believe it's all been conquered. And rather than face the wrath, they're going to throw in with them. They'll pay the higher taxes. They'll deal with the regulations. And they will use them to help crush their opponents,
mm-hmm.
which is what they're doing, which is what the Democrat Party is trying to do with the voting rules with the Republicans. And they'll use them to crush their opponents. And because for the Democrat Party, Glenn, it's about the Democrat Party, like a Marxist party. What is China? It's the Communist Party. What is Cuba? It's the Communist Party. What is North Korea? It's the Communist Party. The country's irrelevant. The people don't matter.
Right.
The power's in the party. Well, what is the Democrat Party trying to do? You're going to have Joe Biden, who's going to go on about Jim Crow and attack these Republican legislatures because that's all that stands between them and absolute control of this country. They did it in California. They've done their experiments in different states. Now they want to nationalize the process. So it doesn't matter if you vote. It doesn't matter if the state legislatures are Republican. They are going to nationalize it. They're going to have one-party rule because the power, the authority, the allegiance is to the party.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you.
These corporations, I think, see this.
Let me ask you about CRT. You've got a whole chapter on CRT, but you go into LATCRIT, which most people don't even know about, and it is this. It's going to be the same argument that they're using now on CRT, which is that's just an obscure legal thing. It's not really even anything. Can you talk about LATCRIT and also CRT? And because you call it out as evil.
It's so obscure that they're obsessed with it, and they're teaching it everywhere.
Yeah.
LATCRIT, look, they talk about intersectionality, and this is the way they pull in all these Marxist movements that have been spawned from Marxism. They're American Marxist movements. They're Americanized movements. And I explain in the book a guy by the name of Herbert Marcuse, who was a Marxist in Berlin. After World War I, the communists and the fascists were fighting. Hitler took over. He couldn't understand why the proletariat didn't rise up. And you'll notice something. The proletariat never rises up. It's always a cabal or a third or whatever it is of the population taking charge. There is no rising up of any proletariat bottom. There's no proletariat in this country rising up. It's the middle class. Do you think the middle class wants to overthrow the government? No. So anyway, this guy was trying to he escapes Germany, comes to the United States. He winds up working for 3 different Ivy League colleges where he's tenured. And he's spreading this Marxism crap, and he can't figure out. And so he comes up with critical theory, the Franklin School, all these Marxists, and he's the lead. Critical theory, which is spawned in our law schools, Harvard, Stanford, and so forth, which is all law is corrupt. Now, why is it corrupt? Because it needs to be viewed through the eyes of those who've made it and not the victims of it. Mm-hmm. And so there's another professor by the name of Derek Bell said, this is a great idea. I'm going to apply that to race. That is, you have to view everything through race. And because we have this white dominant society, everything wrong in this society, everything right, of course, is as a result of the minorities, but everything wrong is a result of the majority. And so it's this white dominant culture. If we don't destroy this, then there'll never be equity. And they reject a colorblind society. They reject Martin Luther King. They despise the whole civil rights movement.
That's crazy.
As Marx despised socialism, because he said these halfway measures are stopping the revolution. So it comes from him. It comes from this guy, Derek Bell. And what it is, what does Marx say? Destroy history. The world begins today. Destroy history. The monuments come down. The books are burning. We're going to brainwash our kids in school on race. They're really being brainwashed on Marxism. And you have some very smart people showing up at these school board meetings, and they're pointing it out. And we need to have the guts not to be intimidated to call what it is.